Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next RPG a Day stream. We're on day 5 now, August 5th, and according to the calendar, it's Throne Day. And I don't know what that means. Or it's not a lot for me to go off of personally. And I don't try and prep for these too much. I think the only one that I prepped for was tactics, just because I had a lot to say and I had a couple of notes. But I didn't really know what to do going into Throne Day. So I think the general plan is to figure out something to say about the concept of thrones. And then, yeah, Dice Ghost, I agree. Can't think of anything for this. Um, and then probably jumping over and doing some light design work because um, that's coming up. That's got to be done this month. So I want to kind of continue on with that, and we'll see how that goes. Uh, I know there's the other words that you can use as backups, but I've been trying to like stick to the main word here. So like the other words are gamble, include, and community, which I think like ultimately have nothing to do with throne. Like it would help if they were tangential or in some way like inspiring of the core word, but those are like totally different words, right? They don't have anything to do with anything. So I guess what do I think of when I think of the word throne and RPGs? I mean, we think of like royalty and authority in senses like that, which I guess then to me the if we're going to talk about royalty or anything like that in terms of like a throne, then the most interesting space to explore that in RPGs for me is overthrowing that throne, right? Is toppling it, is taking it down. So that's that's kind of the most interesting thing to me about thrones is that we should destroy them, and that we don't need them, and that they're oftentimes, I guess, a solid antagonist. If you need an antagonist in your game, um, yeah, the nobility are a great target for something like that. I know that there are a lot of RPGs out there that are about royalty and kingdoms and the crumbling of kingdoms and stuff like that, and I haven't read or played them enough to speak on any authority about them. Um, yeah, I haven't. So there's Kingdom, of course. There's the game Kingdom where you talk about like the rise and fall of a kingdom. That's an interesting, at least game that I'm semi familiar with when it comes to thrones. That, if you're interested in the concept of political intrigue and things like that, there are games out there that I'm somewhat aware of that you could do. Kingdom's an interesting one because it's more of like a almost like a world builder that you do together with your group. Uh, Sean Drake was excited about Thrones, and I think maybe it's because of Court of Blades, right? Court of Blades, their game that came out that was about like political intrigue in court, scheming nobles, court magicians, and dashing duelists. So, you know, I think the Drakes have a clear connection to something like this, and they're all about it. So, you see the clear connections of like Shakespeare's Montagues and Capulets, the Game of Thrones stuff. So there's that. There are those games out there, but for me, I know I've been talking about this game a lot, and I think it's just because it's on the top of my head because I'm working with the system. Like for me, it's Spire then, right? Spire is the only throne that I'm interested in, which is destroying the throne, right? It's a political revolution game. So you're not at the top, but you want to destroy the top. You want to undo everything about it. There's games like Ex Novo 2, Map World. Yeah, so like map and world building and kingdom style games are interesting for Thrones. Political intrigue. I've tried to capture only personally in one of my games that I can think of that would deal with anything like this, and it would be Seasons. In Seasons, you've got the city of Solstice, which is the city of the Fae. And everybody's divided up into the four courts based off of the seasons. And literally, the political power of the city rotates. Quite literally, the city shifts based off of whatever season it is in the mortal world. So, if it's spring in the mortal world, then the spring court is the most powerful court, followed by the summer, then the fall, then the winter. The winter is the least powerful. Um, and then it rotates, and so when summer kicks in, spring goes from the top to the bottom. So you always kind of have to play this game in seasons of, uh, you're going to be powerful in certain points, but then you also know eventually it will turn against you. You won't always be on top. The conceit though of seasons is that you are, you're not you are nobility, but you are doing this with a sense of like masks. Like you're not overtly doing this stuff out and about. Like, so it's not obvious political intrigue, but it's much more backstabbing in illegal activities and stuff like that. So, there's a sense of that being connected to Throne, but not too overtly personally. Um, Dice Ghost mentions, oh yeah, I guess you could say that about Corvid Court too, right? Like it holds sway. Whoever's in charge of the Corvid Court is largely in charge of Nest, the city of Nest. Throne being about controlling interest of a place, like with blades and stuff like that. Yeah, I think if we abstracted out the idea of Throne as like a place of power or a place of influence, you could create a more interesting discussion about it. Then you could start to think about like area control and games that emphasize area control. So anything that has like a mapping component to it, like hex maps that have particular hexes that are really important, or like with travel mechanics and like there's a centralized city or a hub that you go out of and you travel from. Or like in Blades, there's literally like your growing expanse of your seat of power, right? Your gang starts in like the back of some horrible shop that you've like rented out, and then eventually you like take over building by building, block by block, as you expand your gang's influence over Duskfall. But yeah, I don't know. Throne is just so it's so specific, and for me it's just not a space that I play in too much with my games, or that I've had the opportunity to play too many games in. I play games that are about crime and a little bit about intrigue, but never like directly with the throne itself, never with the royalty, but instead with the people at the bottom, right? The people at the bottom, just trying to make it another day. So Throne is gonna. I always knew Throne was gonna be sort of like a wash of a day in terms of these videos, just because it's just not something that I have too much about. But like flavor is gonna be really interesting tomorrow. Talking about how we incorporate flavor into things, um, small and stream and stuff like that are gonna be really interesting. Diceco says that I think there's some or there's many problematic things about thrones and rulers. Yeah, like the second you add like a power dynamic like that at the table where like one person is in charge, uh that gets really that gets tricky, right? Like I don't I don't like that sort of stuff where there's like clear power dynamics across the group unless the game like truly encourages it in interesting ways. So like in Band of Blades, for example, everybody has their role as an officer. And one of them is like in charge of everything. They have sort of final say on stuff, but the other people have their responsibilities and they get to determine certain things. Um, but yeah, if you've got like one person with a nobility background and they can kind of just get away with whatever they want, and other players don't have that background, like that's not particularly interesting or fun for me to play in my games. Um, it's hard to not be like keep it out of the game or destroy it in game. Right, like for me, it's just keep it out. Don't don't use it. Um, Again, that's just in my games. I know there are games out there that handle it very well. Kingdom's a great example of that. Or destroy it. I'm all about that. I'm all about destroying it. So it's a short stream in terms of Throne. Quick 10 minutes of just rambling about how much Thrones are just kind of okay. Um, But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to talk about light.